The
Yeah.
pointer on my laptop stopped working. I don't understand any of this electronic stuff.
Technology stuff.
So this is the newstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So today, can be a very intense subject. Put on your seatbelts, everybody. What did you say?
So definitely, yes.
Yeah. We're going to talk about breaking a trauma bond. So everybody's on the same page, at least in the beginning. Here's the definition I found. A trauma bond is an unhealthy emotional attachment to someone who causes you physical, emotional, or sexual harm. The abusive partner can fluctuate between extreme affection and extreme abuse. The episodes of affection serve as a positive reinforcement to stay in the relationship. So, with that said, yeah, Barry and I were chatting just a minute before, and one of the things that we were talking about is how slowly this happens. Generally, lots. People are not abusive and angry right off the bat. Hopefully, if they are, you really don't stay. But we'll talk about why people stay, period, and certainly why they would stay like that. My experience with my clients and friends has been, it was a very slow, gradual, started out really nice, was a little suspicious, then got nice again. And so the thing that a lot of people will bring up with this particular scenario, the analogy is that if you put a frog in a pot of water that's kind of its same body temperature, a little warm, or it's like being in a jacuzzi. It's very relaxing. You don't mind sitting there because frogs are fine being in water. And then you slowly start turning up the heat, and the water's boiling before you realize it's happening. And that's sort of kind of what happens. The frog doesn't really have an emotional damage probably ahead of time to be in the pot, but it's a good analogy for how it happens slowly, even for people. But it will be good. We'll talk about how to recognize it, what to do about it. Yeah, you wanted to say something. Go right ahead.
Well, a couple of things. One is, I mean, trauma bonds can happen through traumatic events too, so we're not going to exclude that one either.
Yes.
But the context we're speaking to here is really trauma bonds in relationship that weren't traumatic to begin with. And like you were saying, absolutely, a lot of times these relationships start out, everything's perfect, everything's wonderful, everything's fine. And then 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road, the abuse starts, or the negation starts, or the abandonment starts. All those things happen that basically cause trauma. And then because there's so much relationship already established, it's not so easy to walk away so much for some people. So there's that bond that's in there as well. And so the trauma bond has different flavors, and it isn't just from physical abuse, because some people think it's all because of that. It oftentimes can be over something else, where I know some trauma bonds have happened because the person stayed because their partner was abusing somebody else, like the child. And so the partner stayed for the child and didn't want to leave, and stayed because of that too. So there's, again, different labels and flavors, and there is no one clear, like, this is trauma bond and nothing else is. So I want to make sure we get that understood. The thing about it is, to make it very simplistic, is you're being attached to somebody else through some traumatic experience or through some traumatic behavior that you don't see clearly or don't choose to walk away from, because there's an attachment or desire or love that you're not willing to give up.
For sure.
And so that's one of the pieces of the puzzle, which is recognizing what's keeping you there. If you're in a trauma bond situation. And trauma bonds, again, are not just tied to romantic relationships. They happen in other places too. It can even happen in work environments, where things can happen where they can get traumatic experiences. I'm not going to use necessarily abuse, but things where you basically stay at a loyalty no matter how much abuse you're getting. And again, like the frog in the pot, these situations, again, don't usually happen like blatantly right up front. They accumulate gently. They sort of, over time, they accumulate, but they do it in such a way, like same with narcissistic behavior, for example. is you don't know it's what it is until it's too late almost.
Usually. That's
Yeah.
really true because typically people that have gotten out of a narcissistic and or could be the same traumatic relationship look back and know, wow. Because what happens is you truly go, was that a big thing? No. Well, I don't need to make a big thing out of that. That's how it happens over time. Or am I asking for too much? Am I being too picky? And you start often questioning yourself. And if
Yeah.
someone is an abusive personality person, this is really their goal, they will definitely take advantage of telling you, yeah, it's all you. You're too sensitive. That really wasn't what happened. That's called gaslighting when they do something and then tell you that isn't really what happened. It's a good thing to watch out for in this conversation. And we keep letting our good enough line get lower and lower and lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
Or if we really thought about it in the beginning, oh gosh, you hear, I would never let somebody treat me that way. I would never let that happen. And there are people who have very strong boundaries and don't. And then lots of people, for financial reasons or love or security or fear, keep lowering the good enough bar that we've talked about many times, that you
Yeah.
cannot have something fall below and stay below the good enough line and have both people be in a happy, healthy, long-term relationship. And that's what we do when we're in a trauma experience, whatever kind of relationship it is. We keep lowering our good enough way past our tolerance level, usually out of fear.
Yeah, because the thing is, oftentimes when people are single, they have a clear definition of what they want in a relationship, what their standards are, and how they're going to raise up to some point and be something. And then they get into a relationship and they look back 6 months later and go, "Hang on, my standards were up here. What happened between then and now?" Because unfortunately, that's the thing is we tend, oftentimes when we're in a relationship, to accept the relationship as it is and not realize that we may have made a choice that wasn't working for us and step out of it. A lot of people, that relationship choice becomes one that when they're in it, not so much they're in it to see where it goes, but they discount their own intuition, their own radar, their own sensitivities for the sake of the relationship. And that's especially if they've been through one of these before, because we talk about this in other shows about how we tend to repeat patterns and recycles of relationships because we're familiar with them until we learn to do them differently. And traumatic bonds no different in that sense, is that we oftentimes fall into that same sort of experience because we've been there before. Not saying we're looking for it, but the familiarity on a subconscious level keeps us attached to it.
It's really true. And what it often does, we and the other person tap into some of our basic insecurities. That's why we slip. The thing that we're really secure about, and I tell people practice this, say, tell me something you really are proud of, that you really do know you're good at, and that there's no reason for anybody to doubt that. And they'll tell me something. I go, so if somebody said, oh, you're not good at that, you'd go, huh, no, no way. But if they said something that you had a little doubt about, or you don't feel as good at, or firm about, or in addition, you think they know way more than you do about this, you'll start questioning yourself, which isn't a bad thing. But we stop questioning ourselves and just start believing the other person. That's bad for us. That if you
Yeah.
go, let me think about that, I need to think about that. Does that really fit me? And to have a trusted source, oh my gosh, your person, a professional or a family member or a really good long friend, to go, I'm worried about this, I'm puzzled, what do you think? And they're going to tell you the truth in the most
Right.
honest way. So when we get in a habit of doing either thing, the questioning and saying, yeah, that really is me, or no, it's not, or the not questioning and going down that drain, that will bode to what our future is going to be with that person. And when you've had that experience where you keep doubting yourself and going below the good enough line, you will not even be able to be with somebody who thinks you're wonderful, because now you really do think you're horrible. That's the really one of the many bad things about when this goes on for a while. Oh,
Yeah.
the undermining of who you are as a person is awful.
that's the thing that is so available, is that resource of somebody outside, your friends or counselor, therapist, whatever, who can be there as a sounding board and as a clean feedback system. We tend to be sort of so like, you wouldn't understand. It's so amazing, this relationship. I want to be in it, and that self fictionalized story we tell ourselves to stay in a relationship where we know better, but we don't do better because somehow part of it feels like we don't deserve better. And the biggest challenge about this, frankly, in the trauma bond stuff, is where we lose track of our own self worth, and so we don't and trust as well. Frankly, it's sort of funny because I come to conversation recently a lot of in my clients and in my work about self worth and self trust being fundamental. In this context with trauma bonds, both those things get, I won't say violated, but they get basically knocked out the window because if we really had self trust and we really believe in our own self worth, we'd walk away from these situations.
Mhm.
But they override us because the bond is so strong, that attachment is so strong, because the wiring or the energy of the um, trauma gets so into our system and it just hooks us in like it's toxic, but we can't get out of it.
Yes. And what I've seen most of the time is the person who's not there for your best interest that you're now going to experience a trauma bond with, they are really good at being good in the beginning. They're very good at it. There's often little hints, and generally, most of us are not paying attention to that because there are so many good things. And we're not even going to pay attention if somebody, or little intuition or instincts, are tapping us on the shoulder. And that's
Hmm.
really when your relationship is moving forward and you're thinking, wow, everything, there's nothing. That's when you introduce them to your trusted friends, your trusted person or people. Spend a little time with them and
Yeah.
then ask and listen. That's the hardest part about being the friend. When if somebody doesn't listen, you're like, well, there's really nothing you can do. And if you can make a commitment ahead of time, I know I can get carried away, or I'm concerned I'll get carried away. I'm really new at this dating thing, and I've heard these stories, and I need a sounding board. That if you could honestly, and the person that's going to talk to you go, I see all those good things, and it sounds really wonderful. And I just wondered, I didn't like how they spoke to you, or did you notice how they spoke to the waitress? Did you see
Hmm.
how they treated us? And have them just point things out that you and them will now watch and just see, is it that was just that night? Could be. Is it really not as big a thing overall with all the other little things? Or as in this instance, it's going to grow. It's going to
Yeah.
grow every time. It's like a weed. It will survive everything. Who they are, because they're very strong in who they are and they think they're right.
Right. And the challenge
They
with,
feed off of hurting other people.
yeah, that, and so the challenge with that as well is that there's something that's almost fascinated by that too. It's like, I can say it this way is an interesting point of view, but like the looky loos when there's an accident on the freeway, even on the other side of the freeway, but you're slowing down, but the traffic's slowing down to watch it, sort of thing. A certain part of us has that fascination with toxicity and strangeness and damage, and trauma bonds can really bring that part of us out. So we start getting addicted or fascinated by it. And so we think we're doing better, but we're sort of falling into that trap because it's so enticing in a way and so attractive. As bad as it is, we feel like we get something out of it. I mean, we're getting fed somehow. But the challenge with the trauma bond is that we think that we can be better, we're better than it. But at the same time, we're falling victim to it. And that quote you said at the beginning is so key because it's not something we are really able to choose out of unless we really start seeing clearly what's going on.
It's true. It's very true. It's in every walk of our life, like the people who get scammed out of money. So many people, I would never click on a link in email. And now there's so many warnings out there about the toll roads and Amazon. And it looks, I mean, really, if you look at they've learned, they've listened to what we said. Oh, I wouldn't click on it that way. So then they fixed it to make it look even more real. They could cure cancer if they'd start doing that with their brains instead of stealing
That's so
money.
true.
But they've decided they want to steal our money instead. And so this is the same thing where you're like, it really looks fine. And you're tired or you're busy and it looks like a real thing. And of course you would click on it. And the same way, if you're lonely or desperate, Barry and I cannot say those two words enough, that if you are lonely and desperate, you should not be putting yourself out in the dating world, because you are ripe for the picking of somebody who's going to try to take advantage of you in this emotional, mental, physical way, because they see they know how to get in when you've allowed them to see this weak side of you. It's really sad. It's so sad.
It is. It's sad. It's frustrating, but also it's one of those things where it's almost like I say this. In some ways, I found that, and this is for me personally, that I'm now getting. I mean, I've had enough experiences of this where I really become clear at how to avoid it and how to watch and observe. And it almost becomes like a game in a way for me to play, to gamify it, because like one of them has been happening recently. This happened, hasn't happened for about a month now, but I kept getting emails from PayPal that somebody had taken money or I was going to get money. And I checked to the source email address. One thing I recommend, if you, by the way, just for email scams, just sidebar completely. But if you look at an email that's coming from somebody giving you like gifts from AAA or from some other company that's a legit company, look at the sending email address. So click on it, have a look at it, because oftentimes it's a spam account. But with the PayPal one, it was from PayPal. It said it was. And so I reached out to them and said, I think it's a phishing or it's a scam. I said, yeah, they're getting someone's figured a way out where they can make the sending email address accurate. Like, it looks like the real deal.
Yep.
But the content I know, and this thing I'm getting better at is catching these, because I've gotten so many of these. I get emails and the other one's getting even more annoying is then get the email that comes up. There's some sort of ones in your inbox that doesn't make any sense, but then has an unsubscribe button, which is the way they know you're real. I just, because if you click on it to unsubscribe, that means they've got you because they know you're real. So you've got to really watch yourself with the email inbox, because that's where you can get so screwed over with those things. But anyway, back on trombones, that was a bit of a sidebar.
But it can cause a lot of trauma. I had somebody recently tell me how they got scammed out of money because they thought they clicked on something real about Facebook. Took a bunch of money. Poof, gone. So that is a whole nother trauma thing. And so this is the same thing where stay aware of your emails, call the company. That's what I've learned to do. I don't click on anything. I call them, because truly it is extra time, but it's, 98% of the time they've gone, yeah, no, not us. And they give me a address to send it to. In our personal life, because we really want to be in a relationship, we really want to be cared about, we really like the way this person's treating us, we want to click on that even more than this email. I mean, it's even more an animal drive, a physical, emotional, mental drive to move toward. Who wouldn't want to move towards this thing that feels initially so good? And I'm not saying all the good is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the reason you're going slowly is to see, is it really this good? Is it going to continue this good? You've now introduced them to your friends, and your friends are like, oh, great. Really, go for it. And when it's not good, your friends are going to go, I'm concerned about this. I saw this, because they're not usually blatant. And generally, if they're not enamored with this person like you are, they don't have those pink sunglasses on, and which blinds us to the red flags. They'll go, but did you notice? I noticed. Just keep an eye on that. And to have them be your accountability person that they'll keep asking. So what's happening with that? Did you ask them about that? What did they say about that? Because if it turns out this is really a good person and it was just, some weird thing that happened, or they went, oh yeah, I'm working on that. Having that kind of an open conversation is the foundation for a good relationship. So there's another clue. If you go, oh, I can't ask that, they might get mad. They might leave me. That's a really good clue that this is not your person. If the two of you have not made each other feel comfortable enough to say, I'm really curious, I
Mhm.
noticed or I saw or you said, and could you tell me more about that? If you can't do that, please do not proceed. Don't pass go.
It's so true. That's one of the things, is that having your own resource support from people around you who you trust, you think trust, that will give you feedback, that will give you clarity. So you may not be seeing clearly, because the challenge is, love is blind in a way. Sometimes we get so caught up in the euphoria and the honeymoon phase of dating and getting excited, and we think everything's going to be perfect and wonderful. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily all the time. So having someone who's more clear-headed and give you direct feedback can save you a world of hurt.
So we're going to talk more about that after we come back from our very short commercial break about our wonderful station.
See you back in a minute.
Okay. Hello, we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and we're talking about breaking a trauma bond. And before the commercial, we talked about how to recognize it as it's happening, how to have some people watching your back, how to help yourself while you're getting into it. And boy, now if you're in it, if you go, oh, I think that's me, or I think it's my best friend, they're just their knee, waist, neck deep in this awful relationship.
Yeah,
What do you do
absolutely.
about that? It's really important. If you see yourself at all, you see somebody that you're so worried about, we can address that because
Yeah,
it's painful to watch.
it is. And unfortunately, some people do fall prey to it. The the easy answer is to get support and get help from somebody who's got more of a central or centered and clear view of what's going on. Because again, when you're in that romantic relationship, you're caught up in the euphoria and the joy and the excitement of what's possible. And you may be ignoring, suppressing, oblivious to, denying things that are happening in the relationship that aren't helpful, aren't positive or negative or whatever they are. So one of those things, and we talked this before in other relationship, in other shows about, don't give up your friends for your relationship. If you meet somebody and they say, like, let's go away, and I can't, I don't want you seeing your friends. Well, that's a red flag right there anyway. But if you've got friends who you had before the relationship started, make sure you keep them around, because they can be good sounding boards when you're going through the journey, because it might be just little fiddly stuff that you tell them about and they go, get over it, that's a minor thing. Or it might be, no, that's a red flag. And so trauma bonds are, again, as we said at the beginning, things that tend to show up more incrementally versus all big and full blown at the beginning. However, they can get more insidious and more in daily practice or daily experience with your partner. And having a resource of friends that you go to on a regular basis that you connect with, and also can be your sounding boards, they can basically let you know whether they notice something shifted, or the way you're reacting is different, or the way that heaven forbid, you're walking up and you've got bruises or something like that. But things where you're basically being abused and don't realize it, or haven't chosen to make that the priority, that you need to get out of the situation because of it. You just said, gloss over that because I want to stay in the relationship.
Mhm.
Having friends you can talk to who you've already built that relationship with, that friendship, that trust with, can be an incredible gift for you in this journey, to be able to sound off of them and to really hear from them the truth, who aren't invested in you one way or the other, except they love you as a friend, so they want to make sure you're okay.
Mhm.
It's one of the best approaches.
It's really helpful because if you will, there was no if about it. When you change, you will change. You can't stay in a trauma bonded relationship and not change, because the other person doesn't want you to be the way you are. They want you to be the way they want you to be.
Hmm.
And they will work on you to change you. And it always, I've never seen anybody in this situation be better for it. Because generally, one of the great things about getting in a really good, healthy relationship is that you're already very healthy, whole people, and you help each other stretch and grow and be even more of who you already are. You want to
Yeah.
be you and more, stretched, excited, blossoming, expanding. Where in a trauma situation, there's lots of constricting and lesser than and pressure and pushing down. So that if you notice, I'm really different. I'm tired all the time. I can't think for myself. Wow, I thought I was really smart, but now I feel really stupid about lots of things or everything. If you catch yourself thinking that, this is probably what's happening to you. And if your friends start saying this, you're really different, and you used to be happy, and you seem really sad all the time, and you seem not to have much motivation. I mean, it's really important to have you be this for somebody and they be this for somebody, because that's exactly what happens when you get in one of these trauma bonding situations.
Right.
You will walk away every time feeling worse instead of better.
Yeah.
That is such an important thing to watch. So if you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh, I think I feel that way," look at that, please.
The reality, as we've said many times on the show as well, is that relationships are meant to be additive to your life, not subtractive. So you may find yourself wanting to give up a couple of things for the relationship, whatever it is. Maybe it's your laziness or your bad habits to be in the relationship. That's one thing. But if you have to give up the quality of your life to be in the relationship, again, it's like that's a slippery slope to a place you don't want to go to. So having clarity about who you are and what your values are and what's important to you before you start in a relationship is a good place to be as well, because it gives you a framework that you don't give up when you get into a relationship. In fact, if that relationship forces you or pushes you to give up certain things that are your standards, again, red flags, good signs, maybe you make a different choice. The thing we're talking about here in other ways is being preemptive in a way, to see ahead of time. So as you notice those things creeping up on you, you don't fall in the trap where you become so attached that when the trauma happens, you stay connected and you stay bonded. It's about how do you disengage early enough to say, you know what, I need to walk away. However that works for you.
So walking away, it's really, 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 really hard. It's really hard.
Hmm.
You the longer the trauma goes on, the less capable you'll feel to leave. It's just the way it works. You'll feel less strong, less self-confident, less resilient. It's the goal of the trauma person to have you be more dependent on them.
Yeah.
So the longer you're there, the harder it's going to be to leave. I've watched it. I've tried to help people that were friends, and I've helped people that were clients, that you cannot change another person. You can't help another person that isn't willing to ask for help and be ready to accept help. And to know that it's a very gentle, long process, because getting disengaged from that, it's almost like, the plant's been propped up and now you're going to take the prop away, and the plant thinks it's going to just fall down because they don't know how to prop themselves up again. And maybe you do have to fall down and then figure out another way to get propped up. It's scary. It's very scary.
Hmm.
And that's when you have to say, the scared of staying needs to get less than the scared of leaving. The scared of leaving, you need to overcome that so that you'll be not as scared to stay. But it's one of the hardest things I've watched. Women who will stay in physically, emotionally, mentally abusive situations, less often men who do,
Hmm.
professionally and personally, romantically. It's I think it's almost like the same addiction with drugs and alcohol and sex and shopping, that you're addicted to this feeling. It's not the adrenaline feeling, but I should think about what that is, what the chemical is when you feel depressed. But you're addicted to that, and you're addicted to somebody telling you what to do, because now you feel incapable of doing it yourself.
Right.
It's a one of those big, big, big challenges out there.
Absolutely. And in fact, speaking to, if you do get through one's relationships and come to the other side of it, the things, if you don't do anything different afterwards, the odds are likely you're going to be in another relationship with a similar flavor, a similar style, a similar pattern. Again, we're talking in previous shows about the repeated patterns and cycles of relationship. And trauma bond in that sense is no different. It's another, I won't say comfort, but safety in a sense, like being inside your comfort zone. It's something you'll be attracted to and comfortable with because you've done it before and you got used to it. So if you really get clear after that relationship that you do not want to repeat it, that you want to shift your polarity, your focus point, and shift your positioning from that point forward, get help. Go see a therapist, counselor, coach, guide, facilitator, which one of us two or somebody else, that will give you the support so you can navigate through and just start realizing where you've got the hooks inside that you can disengage once and for all, so you don't go back and repeat the same thing again.
Yes, there's also websites, there's support groups, and one of the most amazing things they have on those is there's a button on the screen all the time you're there that's exit. Because if the person comes in that you're afraid of, you can blip the screen off really fast and it'll go back to whatever it is you were looking at before, shopping or reading your emails. They've put that safeguard out there. I'm really impressed. And then the book that I recommend to everyone that knows somebody or is in this situation, it's called Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay. It's a tiny book. You can get it from the library. You can get it cheap from Amazon. And it's about this. It's so about this where you list out, well, yeah, I mean, you're not staying because there's nothing good. Nobody does that. Right. And you really don't, unless you're locked in a closet. You really are going to write out all the good things. And then you're going to write out the things that aren't working for you. And then you make them more, you broaden each of those subjects to really look at what's the impact in your life. And I've known very few people who left because of the book. What I've known people is they've come to me then, or you, or a therapist, because they see, oh, I really do need help. I really see that this is a problem and I don't know how to get out myself. And that's the gift. If you go to any of these websites or support groups or read the book and get to the place where you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for the lifeboat. Please come get a lifeboat, bring it by the side of this place that I'm on and help me because I can't do it myself. Because it's a lot to do by yourself. That's why you really need some support. So if you find anything that gives you enough oomph to just reach out to a professional that can help you, no one's ever been sorry.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, how do I go with this? So many people, unfortunately, look at relationships as just something that happens by chance. And I know I did the same thing myself. That's where I used to be as well. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's a lot more features and tools to help you get there, like matchmakers and dating apps and dating service sites and all those other things. However, there aren't necessarily a proliferation of front-end guidance, facilitation, coaching type resources for you to go, okay, before I get into this show, before I jump into this, let me get prepared and get forearm, so to speak. Oh. That's one reason I'm working so much on the front end now, the way I've been messaging, because my work is so much more about instead of saving you after you made a mistake, helping you prepare up front so you know what it is you really want and you're aligned to that. I know the same thing you do as well. So having those forewarned skills, first of all, it changes your scanning focus, so you don't tend to be drawn to people who are going to create more trauma in your life. But it also gives you more clarity about what's important, and so you don't jump into a relationship because you're feeling lonely or feeling less than. In fact, you'll find that you won't even look for a relationship unless it really adds to what you already have. That's the ideal. That's the way I live my life too.
Oh, Barry, you and I talk so much about being proactive, because that's how I came up with the name of my company, that it's called The Perfect Catch, because you learn how to be one and then you'll attract one. It's amazing how it works in that order. You find when people get more confident and feeling better about themselves, they attract people that are feeling also better about themselves. And you can have these open, honest conversations. That's the proactive part, where you figure out what it is that you need and want, and you say it out loud to somebody, and what do they think of it? And then they tell you what they're looking for, and what do you think of it? Mm-hmm. So we've talked about how it can happen, what happens when you're in it, and how some tools to get out. And when you get out, these are the steps to heal. because people, everybody in the world, that's not true. Most people would say, I don't want to do that again. And I love when people tell me they don't want to do something again. And I always say, what's your plan? How are you going to not do it? And they go, oh, I don't know. I go, well, good. That's what Barry and I are here for.
Right.
Because if you got yourself in it, you're not even sure how you got in it, really. So first we need to figure out how you got in it and why. What was the benefit? What was the buy? What was the good thing, the good reason? And then how do we change that dynamic and then have a different way of looking at yourself and dating and partnering up? So it is a process. It's not just throw up a bunch of walls, because that's what most people do when they say, well, I don't want that again. But you don't just throw up a wall for that. You put up a wall all around you. And then truly, how can good things get in? You don't want to do that. That's really what you don't want to do, is block out the good things, right?
No. Being discerning, having clarity, making choices that align to your values absolutely is the right way to do it. It's funny how, I mean, I'm guilty of it too when back in the day, of how tempting relationships were without any without any discernment or any understanding. And I know, being a guy, it's like, we get attracted by what a woman looks like more than anything else. So it's difficult to disengage from like, wow, she looks amazing, to how does she behave? How does she treat people? How will she be in a relationship? Because we don't necessarily think that far. So as men, we sometimes have more work to do because we're so caught up in that primary focus point, which is, how does she look?
Mm-hmm. So I just tell men, split the blood from here to there. Just at least give enough attention to both with your blood. Don't let the blood just go there. And for women, I can't tell you how many women over 50, I didn't feel any connection. I didn't feel any spark. Why would I go out with him again? Was he nice? Was he interesting? Did he ask you questions? Did you not find anything bad about how he looked? Then at least one or two times. I'm telling you, I would not have gone out with my husband a second time if I hadn't changed my thinking to this way, because he wasn't my physical type. There wasn't anything bad. I have to tell you, though, after the first meeting, I was like, I can't wait to see him again, because how he thinks, how he feels, how I felt sitting there. But it took me a while to become connected and sparky about how he looked. And then I did. But if I had dated that way for a long time, as we all did in our earlier days, and it didn't work out to get married. And when I started dating a different way, I met the man of my dreams. I mean, really, it was so amazing. Sadly, he died. So Barry and I cannot stress this enough. So now I'm going to say, if you've had a trauma bond experience and you're out of it, or you're in the middle of it, the good news is you really are going to be resilient. You really are going to be even more clear about what you want and need. You're going to be so compassionate about the other people out there that are like that. It's like going to AA and being a sponsor, that you could talk to somebody that's maybe still in the middle of that or thinking about, because you're like, I was there. I can tell about that. So you will be a better person for having been there. Because you feel, when I've gone through this with people, you feel less than zero. Often when you get out of this kind of a relationship, you just feel like there's nothing good about you, and and then you give how did I not notice that? I mean, it's just worse and worse and worse. So once you get past that, which Barry and I are really good at helping you with that, you will now understand how you survived that, because some people just check out if they're in the middle of that, and how resilient you are, and this extra knowledge that you have that you will never do that again. Look how powerful you are now and how much you can help other people. So that's the part that we need to help you give some hope. No matter where you are in this process, there is such a positive way of looking at it if you'll do the work. Once you've done the work to get to the other side of it, you'll be a gift to the world. Don't you think, Barry? Like we are.
I'll be careful how I answer that.
I know I stunned you. I could tell.
Yeah, I think I'll leave that one where it is. But just to reiterate and say this piece one more time, and this is a global statement rather than just for this particular theme, is that if you haven't done any work before you get into the next relationship, you likely will have the same experience you had the last time. And so if you don't want to have the same experience as the last relationship, especially if it's a trauma bond, that you went through last time. You don't want to go through the same thing again. Do something different between now and then, whether it's working with a coach, reading some books, kind of therapy, doing something that changes your paradigm so that when you go into the next relationship, you won't tend to be in the same place you were for the last one. If you take that piece of advice alone, you're in a better place than you were before.
Boy, yeah. We should have T-shirts that say that. I've been on a T-shirt kick. I've been thinking of all these things I want to put on T-shirts lately.
Good choice.
I think so too. You can break a trauma bond and be even stronger on the other side.
Absolutely.
Don't you think? Yeah, because it's the truth. It really is the truth. It's one of the things that I think has, what I've seen is it has one of the biggest arcs. There's such a big difference from where you start before you get in a trauma bond, where you are in a trauma bond, and where you are when you've survived. I mean, I think you could call yourself a survivor when you get to the other side of it and heal yourself so that you can move on feeling comfortable and confident that first you won't do that again, and that how much stronger you are as a person, because strong people generally, I mean, you can have strong traits. I mean, I've known a couple of women who were running companies that ended up in really bad personal relation, bad. But it was because there was a part of them that was still not feeling good enough. It didn't feel lovable enough. And so this person made them feel lovable and just wormed their way in, even though their brain had a much higher IQ than even the other person. Because they go, how did this happen? Because I'm so smart. I said, you weren't smart and educated. You're not stupid. You just weren't educated about this.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. We educate you in a way that you didn't know already. Everybody, it's so sad how many people think they should just know how to date. Barry and I are here to say no.
Yeah.
That's another thing. That's another T-shirt, right? You don't just know how to date. It gives you permission to stop feeling badly that this kind of stuff happens to you. You didn't know any better. Right. You didn't. So, okay, let's move on. Don't give you shit about it. You're like, oh, as Maya Angelou said, you did the best you knew then. And now that you know better, you can do better. So let us teach you. Let us show you how to do better. Because you're smart. You could learn this. Just nobody teaches this anywhere. I wish it was more widely. As you said, there's just not enough. There's not enough information out there saying, let's be proactive about this instead of so reactive after it happens.
Which is why we do the show. Is why we're here.
Yeah. See, there we are being a gift. I'm going to say it again. Because it's like there's a still pond and we drop a pebble in it and there's all these concentric circles that go out in the world and we're still doing our thing. And we're just going to need to believe that it's impacting other people in a positive way. And because they tell other people and they tell other people and they get in happier relationships. I just feel like we are a lovely little gift.
I agree with you.
Okay, good. I'll make a T-shirt for that too. I have to have a little side biz doing T-shirts, I guess.
Apparently, yeah.
So, as I mentioned, if this is how you have felt, you're worried that this might happen to you. Boy, was that a good conversation to have beforehand. Or you're in the middle of this, or you've somehow gotten out of it. You don't know how to not do it again. Or somebody, you could send them this podcast. Reach out to Barry or I, because we both would be so happy to just chat with you and give you a touchstone about, well, let's see where you really are. And what could you do about it? What could you do about it? Let's see, what are you willing to open yourself up to have your life be better? So if you'd like to reach me, the best way is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And if you scroll down to the middle, you'll see a questionnaire of what's holding you back from love. And if you click on that, there's 10 brief questions that talk about where are you now? Where would you like to be? And then you'll have access to my online calendar and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. You can also join my mailing list that you'll get this podcast. And then I have some exciting news I'm going to talk about in a second. And then you can also scroll down to the bottom to all my social media links that you can click on of Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube. And the YouTube has all of our past podcasts. I have a book on my website.
What?
It went live 2 days ago. I'm excited. It's a guide to dating. So if you look across the top, it says ebook. And if you click on the ebook, you can download my book. I'm very
Wow.
excited. It's my very first time to have a book. I've been really wanting to do this because Barry has a book. And I have a second book. And now I'm excited. I'm working on a second book. But I'm very excited. If you go to my website, I know, I was so excited. I go, I'm going to tell Barry I'm very excited. And then you can also send me a personal email to tell me how much you liked my book. It's Christine at theperfectcatch.com. Isn't that exciting?
That is exciting. I had no idea.
I knew I wanted to surprise you. I knew you'd make a wonderful face about it. I was just waiting.
I hope I satisfied that need.
Thank you. And so, Barry, tell people how they can reach you and get all of your wonderful information.
Absolutely. So I have a few things as well. So you can go to my website, which is barryselby.com. And on the homepage of my website, at the top of the screen, there's 3 options on the homepage. At the top of the screen, there is a button that basically lets you schedule a conversation with me. Also, a question that goes with it basically sets you up for what you're looking for, and I can get some clarity of what you need and what support you want to get from me. Also gets you on my calendar so we can have a conversation. At the bottom of the screen is a link to my email list. You can jump into my email list, the same as Christine. I send out a replay of the show, and I have some other things brewing as well. So frankly, you join both email lists because we all have lots of good stuff going on. In the middle of the screen is a link to my relationship readiness assessment, because one of the things that may be useful for you to know is, where are you on that scale, on the spectrum of being ready for a relationship or not? So in the middle of the page, there is a link to my quiz, which is a relationship readiness assessment. You can go straight to it if you want to, which you go to barryselby.com/quiz. That's the original quiz I wrote, which is actually based, I use 4 elements based on the Wizard of Oz theme. So you play with that. It's just entertaining. But anyway, the quiz is useful. Also on my homepage, on my website, is my book, which is my book. I've had it for a long time now. It's been for like 12 years now, I think, 11, 12 years. Anyway, so that book's been out on Amazon. It's a best-selling book. You go to barryselby.com/book to get to that. There's also on there is a little review of my book, an audio review done by 2 AI voices that I discovered, which is really fun. So you can have a listen to that first. So if you're not sure about my book, go to that page and actually listen to the 10, 12-minute audio review by these 2 people. There's a couple of glitches in it because it's not perfect, but it's a really good little discussion about my book, and I think it's really good, so I put it on my website. There's also the coursework on my website, other offerings as well. If you want to find out more, you can send me an email at barryselby.com for the various things I'm offering right now, because I have a few different courses available. Social media-wise, my name, Barry Selby, same as on my website, is also on my YouTube channel, which is where all these videos plus others are. Also on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, and on Blue Sky. And there's one other one. I'm not on X and I'm not on TikTok, so you'll find me anyway. So look for Barry Selby. And if you look for me on Instagram or on Thread, look for the real Barry Selby, because my account got changed over there. So that's the way you can find me. You can email me on my website. Oh, one more thing. Also, because I work so much more about the self-relationship piece, where you are before you get into a relationship, I also created a quiz for you there. So if you want to know about your own self-relationship, you go to barryselby.com/self-quiz. That is actually a much deeper assessment than the other quiz is, but it's really worth looking at if you're not sure about your own self-worth or self-trust issues, other things too. That covers 7 different areas of your own relationship with yourself, and it'll give you lots of feedback, and you get a real good PDF afterwards, which gives you the quiz results as well as some really good guidance you can take with you. So go take the quiz, the self-quiz especially, and discover where you are and where you want to go.
So perfect. And if you'd like to watch us live and ask us questions that we're very happy to answer while we're on the show, you can watch us live at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern right here on StreamYard on the Going Solo Media radio station. And you can also watch, pardon me?
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday. I do forget that sometimes. And then you can also watch us on Roku TV and Apple TV. But you can also take us with you, right, Barry?
Yes, if you're not so attached to watching our faces, you can also listen to us in audio format. The show has also been uploaded on various podcast platforms, and you go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Podcasts, you listen to us wherever you go, because the great thing about podcasts is you can have them plugged into your ear when you're out hiking or shopping or going to the gym or driving or anything else. So you don't have to watch a video when you're out driving. It's not a good thing to do, so don't do that. But so if don't want to be stationary, you can still listen to us wherever you go in your life and enjoy 200 plus episodes of our conversations, so you can really learn how to be a better partner in a relationship.
And we'd be so happy to help you through our podcasts or in person on the phone. So reach out
Or
to
our
us.
book.
Yes, and buy our books.
Yeah.
And now we can both say we are published authors. It's very
Yes.
exciting.
I love it.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you next week. You take care of yourselves.
Bye for now.